Associate Professor Walter Teixeira.
Mr. Speaker, individuals who face harassment at the workplace should contact the Tripartite Alliance for Fair and Progressive Employment Practices, TAFEP, for advice and assistance. If the facts suggest that an offence under the Penal Code or the Protection from Harassment Act (POHA) is committed, TAFEP will refer them to the police or the courts. At the Ministry of Manpower's MOM's Committee of Supply debate this year, in fact just 2 months ago, we announced that TAFEP would set up a centre for workplace harassment so as to further enhance the support provided to individuals who come forward to report workplace harassment. In 2015, the tripartite partners also agreed on a tripartite advisory on managing workplace harassment. The tripartite partners affirmed that all employers are expected to provide a safe and healthy working environment for their employees. They are also in agreement that for cases that do not constitute a criminal offence, the proper way to deal with it is through effective grievance handling procedures within the companies. To help employers put in place processes to prevent and manage workplace harassment complaints, TAFEP provides online resources such as a sample workplace harassment prevention policy and a list of training providers to train the supervisors in dealing with workplace harassments and complaints. Tripartite advisories are meant to provide further guidance for employers and employees. We do not track how many companies implement the measures suggested in the advisories. However, when evaluating whether an employer has taken adequate measures in response to a complaint of workplace harassment, MOM and TAFEP will assess whether the employer has implemented an effective grievance handling procedure as well as the measures that's outlined in the tripartite advisory on managing workplace harassment. If the employer failed to address a workplace harassment case fairly, TAFEP would advise the employer to review the case again. TAFEP would also engage the employer to put in place the proper measures as outlined in the tripartite advisory to ensure better prevention and also management of workplace harassment. For egregious cases where the companies fail to provide a safe environment for their employees, MOM will take actions against the company, including curtailing the work passes.
Associate Professor Walter Teixeira.
Thank you, Speaker. I thank the SPS for that reply. I understand the Ministry is taking this issue very seriously. I appreciate those efforts very much. I think main concern here is if we're not putting in some effort to try to track, for example, the number of employers who are adhering to these guidelines, we would find it difficult to say anything credibly, I think, about how well we're addressing these concerns. And, you know, if there were, for example, an incident of severe workplace harassment, let's say not taken care of properly in the workplace, as what happened to students at NUS, then I think it would be difficult for the government to say, you know, what is the actual state of affairs. That's my concern.
I want to thank Associate Professor Walter Teixeira for the supplementary questions. Maybe allow me to explain what's the difference between tripartite advisory vis-a-vis tripartite standard. But before that, allow me to again recap that 2 months ago, MOM announced that TAFEP will be made a resource center for workplace harassment, and one of the objectives is really to, like what Associate Professor Walter Teixeira has mentioned, to educate and also equip employers, not just employers, but also employees with the necessary information and resources when it comes to this topic of workplace harassment. And in the tripartite advisory, we have provided very clear, very comprehensive and free sample copy of the workplace harassment prevention policy, very detailed, which will cover guiding principles, definition of workplace harassments, and also how to take preemptive steps, etc. Now, TAFEP has also, within the last 2 months, produced a video so that we can share with not just employers but also employees what constitutes workplace harassment, the definition I talked about, and also in the video outline what are the employer's fundamental responsibilities and policy should be. And I want to assure him that TAFEP is certainly stepping up efforts to expand outreach to more employers and employees, and also to advise more employers to implement the measures that's outlined in the tripartite advisory. And other than the education efforts, in fact, we are working with partners like the Labour Movement. We're also working with SNEF, which is Singapore National Employers Federation, to organize workshops. Because we realize it's not just the boss in the company. We need to work with the supervisors, and the workshops are also targeted at the supervisors to help them understand how to smoothen the employer and employee relationship. Now, so I've talked about the tripartite advisory, and the objective of the advisory is to outline comprehensive information and also sample copy of the workplace harassment prevention policy. But actually, it is also a way for us to develop the pipeline for companies that will come on board tripartite standards. Now, TAFEP has carried ads about the tripartite standards on grievance handling so as to encourage employers to adopt proper and also specific practices in this area, which also include workplace harassment. Allow me to share some numbers. As at end January this year, more than 961 employers, which collectively employ more than 498,000 people, have signed on the standard. So actually, the tripartite advisory is a way for us to create a pipeline for companies to come on board the standard, and for which we do track whether do they commit to the standard.
Mr. Patrick Tay.
Just a point and a suggestion for SPS. In light of the amendments that we have seen the last 2 days on the Penal Code as well as the Prevention from Harassment Act, can I request MOM to take lead and work with our tripartite partners to review the tripartite advisory on managing workplace harassments, as well as the outreach efforts and materials?
I want to thank the member, Mr. Patrick Tay, for the suggestion, and also I want to take the opportunity to thank him and the Labour MPs in the NTUC Labour Movement because of their efforts since the introduction of POHA, and especially they've been doing very regular legal primers on this topic of workplace harassment in partnership with the Law Society of Singapore since POHA was passed as law. And I know they have done this to better educate the employees, in particular the union members, and actually the non-union members as well. To answer his question, this is a copy of the tripartite advisory, and MOM and TAFEP, we will continue to work with our tripartite partners to keep this document current and relevant. I must also say that the current focus really is to go all out, to expand our outreach, to even cover more employers and employees. But we remain committed to keep this current and relevant so that we can advise and bring on board more employers to keep our workplace harassment free.
Ms. Cynthia Ong.
Sorry, SPS, can I ask you, earlier you mentioned that a center will be set up for employees to report cases of sexual harassment in the workplace, and that's not coming yet, right? That's actually in the pipeline. Could you share more of that, and what's the process for employees to come forward if they want to report cases at the center? Thank you.
I want to thank Ms. Cynthia Ong. As soon as it was announced in early March during the MOM COS, the resource center at TAFEP began its operations. And allow me to share with her what are the functions of the resource center. So employees can choose to file the report with TAFEP, and they will be advised on the appropriate actions that they can take against the perpetrator and also the avenues of support. Depending on the case details, TAFEP can link them up with police or the courts if it is an egregious case of workplace harassment, which constitutes offence under the Penal Code or POHA. And for affected employees who need counselling services, TAFEP will also help advise them on where to obtain such support services and put them in touch with the relevant agency. So we also provide them the necessary support.